Good day, everyone. 'Tis I, the Blue Baron, defender of traditionalism. Fides Traditio Monarchia!
And I'm Manfred, his red-tailed hawk.
Today we'll be continuing our series of animation antiquities by looking at the origin of one of the most beloved animated characters of all time, Mickey Mouse. We'll also be discussing how his appearance influenced later animation and ultimately allowed for the flourishing of full-length animated films. But before we can look at Mickey Mouse, we have to look at the character that preceded him. As you may remember from last time, the Alice comedies were arguably what officially began Walt Disney's career in animation. The series ran from March 1924 to July 1927, by which time Disney had begun to tire of it and wanted to move away from the mixed format of animation and live action and onto straight animation. After Mintz requested new material to distribute through Universal Pictures, Disney and iWorks would end up creating a new character to be the face of their animation. This character is rarely remembered today, but could have at the time been thought of as Disney's first child. The predecessor to Mickey Mouse, this is Oswald the Lucky Rabbit.
Who?
That's exactly my point. In 1927, because of cost and technical restrictions, Disney and his chief animator of iWorks decided to end their work on the Alice comedy series in search of new creative opportunities. Coincidentally, Universal Studios at that time wanted to get into the cartoon business and needed a cartoon character of its own. So Disney's distributor Charles Mintz told Disney and iWorks to create a new character they could sell to Universal. Wanting to make cartoons with an all-animated look, Disney signed a contract with Universal Studios, leading to the creation of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and Universal's first cartoon series. Work on both the character and the series began soon after Disney moved his studio to Hyperion Avenue. Disney had chosen to make the character a rabbit since there were so many animated cats at the time.
How many?
Pardon?
How many animated cats were there at the time?
Oh, well, there was Felix the Cat, of course, Crazy Cat, and...
That's it.
Alright, maybe there weren't that many, but the fact remains that arguably the most popular cartoon star of that time was a cat, and in order for a new cartoon to stand out, it would have to be something different. At any rate, Universal was given the right to name the rabbit, and they selected a name out of a hat, coming up with Oswald. In the early summer of 1927, Disney finished the first Oswald cartoon entitled Poor Papa. However, Universal was not very satisfied. They had expected a more Charlie Chaplin-like character and thought Oswald was too elderly, sloppy, and too fat. Disney agreed to make some changes to the character, and the cartoon was not released in theaters at the time. Disney, together with iWorks, then created a second cartoon titled Trolley Troubles, featuring a much younger, neater Oswald. This short, released on September 5, 1927, officially launched the series. Ooh, it's time for tea. Manfred, summarize the short.
Fine. The story for Oswald's first cartoon was fairly simple. Oswald is preparing a trolley to transport bunny children and other animal characters, but there are some obstacles. One is a cat who walks onto the tracks and refuses to move until Oswald drives the trolley underneath her. Oswald thinks all is well until the hill gets steep. Oswald uses the goat to get the trolley up the hill, then down the hill. The trolley unexpectedly goes onto a bumpy road, forcing Oswald to toss the children out of the trolley one by one.
Really? It looks to me like they're jumping out.
Well, to be honest, I think it's just the motion that's causing them to fall out. Anyway, Oswald prays to a live, takes off his foot, and rubs it on his head. As for the saying that rub his foot gives you good luck. Eventually, the trolley crashes into a river and becomes a raft. Oswald uses a big stick to row it downstream.
Thank you, Manfred. As far as cartoon plots at the time went, it was nothing too special. It was good, certainly, but it wasn't groundbreaking. Still, I enjoyed it, and apparently most of the public at the time did as well, because Oswald proved to be Disney's greatest success yet. The public loved him, the press loved him, it was Disney's major hit of 1927, and even managed to rival other popular cartoon characters such as Felix the Cat and Coco the Clown. Oswald became a true hero, and from that moment on, a new cartoon featuring Oswald was released every 2 weeks. The success of the Oswald series allowed the Walt Disney Studio to grow to a staff of nearly 20. Walt's weekly salary from the series was $100, while Roy Disney's was $65. The Disney brothers earned $500 per Oswald short and split the year-end profits, with Walt receiving 60% or $5,361 and Roy receiving 40% or $3,574.
That all seems pretty meager.
Yes, that's because you're still thinking in terms of modern devalued currency. Keep in mind this was 1927. Walt's $100 weekly salary would be $1,406.82 in 2017 money, while Roy Disney's $65 weekly salary would be around $914. The $500 that the Disney brothers earned per Oswald short would be $7,034. Finally, with regards to their 60-40 split of the year-end profits, Walt's $5,361 would be $75,419 approximately in 2017 money, and Roy's $3,574 would have been $50,279. Not bad for two men who were just starting out in the business. With income gained from the Oswald series, Walt and Roy purchased 10 acres of land in the desert. Yes, Manfred, that amount of money could get you 10 acres of land back then.
Yay.
And they also invested in an oil drilling venture. Iwerks also invested his income in several stone mills to crush paint pigment, which he used to make paint formulas that were utilized by animators for decades. Sadly, though, their success with Oswald would not last long. As time passed, Disney feared that Mintz would forego renewal of the contract, partly due to Iwerks informing Disney that George Winkler, at the behest of Mintz, had been going behind Disney's back during pickup runs for Oswald reels and hiring away his animators. Eventually, Walt traveled with his wife Lily to New York to shop the series to other distributors, including Fox and MGM, prior to meetings with Mintz. As Walt later recalled, he placed 2 Oswald prints under one arm and, feeling like a hick, marched 1/2 block north on Broadway to MGM to visit Fred Quimby. During this period, Walt and Lillian attended the premiere of the Oswald short Rival Romeos, which debuted at the Colony on 53rd and Broadway. In the spring of 1928, Disney traveled to New York City in hopes of negotiating a more profitable contract with his producer Charles Mintz, but as economic problems were apparent at the time, Mintz instead demanded that Walt take a 20% budget cut, although large turnarounds were promised if the studio's finances showed considerable growth. As leverage, though, Mr. Mintz reminded Disney that Universal owned Oswald, and revealed that he had already signed most of Disney's current employees to his new contract. Angrily, Disney refused the deal and only returned to produce the final Oswald cartoons he contractually owed Mintz. While most of his fellow animators left for Mintz's studio, Disney decided to quit and therefore leave the character he created, a premise which inspired the Disney fan fiction story Walt's Lost Treasure, which is worth having a look at for any Disney fan. On Walt's long train ride home, he came up with an idea to create another character, and, hopefully, retain rights to it. He and Iwerks would go on to develop a new cartoon in secret, starring a new character which would soon become the most successful and popular cartoon character in film history, and later become the foundation of a global entertainment empire. This character was Mickey Mouse. As you can imagine, Walt Disney was dismayed by most of his staff leaving him for Mintz, viewing it, not without reason, as betrayal. He was determined, however, to restart his company from scratch. The new Disney studio initially consisted of animator Ub Iwerks and a loyal apprentice artist, Les Clark, who together with Wilfred Jackson were among the few who remained loyal to Walt. One lesson Disney learned from the experience was to thereafter always make sure that he owned all rights to the characters produced by his company. In the spring of 1928, Disney asked Ub Iwerks to start drawing up new character ideas. Iwerks tried sketches of various animals, such as dogs and cats, but none of these appealed to Disney. A female cow and male horse were also rejected, though they would later turn up in the Disney universe as Clarabelle Cow and Horace Horsecollar. A male frog was rejected, which would later show up in Iwerks' own Flip the Frog series, but this would be distributed by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer.
So when did Mickey Mouse come into the picture?
Well, before I can tell you that, I have to tell you a little story. Back when Walt Disney was working at Laugh-O-Gram Studios in Kansas City, Missouri, he often kept working there alone, late at night, after everyone else had gone home. Because he was the only one there, he got to see the things that one didn't notice during the day, namely the building's mice. Here is a quote from Walt himself on the matter. Referring to the mice, Walt says, "They used to fight for little pieces of cheese in my wastebasket when I worked alone late at night. I lifted them out and kept them in wire cages on my desk. I grew particularly fond of this one brown mouse. He was a timid little guy. By tapping him on the nose with my pencil, I trained him to run inside a black circle I drew on my drawing board. When I left Kansas to try my luck at Hollywood, I hated to leave him behind. So I carefully carried him to a backyard, making sure it was a nice neighborhood, and the tame little fellow scampered to freedom. In 1925, Hugh Harman, likely inspired by Walt's story, had drawn up some sketches of mice around a photograph of Walt. These were later seen by Iwerks and inspired him to create a new mouse character for Disney. Disney later made a drawing himself of the character, and in 1928, during a train trip to New York, he showed the drawing to his wife Lillian Marie Bounds and said he was going to call it Mortimer Mouse. She replied that the name sounded too sissified and suggested Mickey Mouse instead. Interestingly enough, the name Mortimer Mouse would go on to be used for two different characters in the Disney universe, one being Minnie Mouse's ranch-owning cattleman uncle, first appearing in the short Death Valley in 1930, and the other being Mickey Mouse's rival, who first appeared in the short Mickey's Rival in 1936. Disney wanted Mickey Mouse to be the new star character to replace Oswald the Lucky Rabbit after he lost the rights to the character to Charles Mintz. To this end, he began work on adapting Oswald's unreleased short, Plain Crazy, into a Mickey Mouse cartoon. Mickey was first seen in the short's test screening on May 15, 1928, but it failed to impress the audience, and to add insult to injury, Walt could not find a distributor. Though understandably disappointed, Walt went on to produce a second Mickey short, The Galloping Gaucho, but this was also not released for lack of a distributor. One theater owner had even said to Walt, "Your stupid brain and your stupid mouse character can get out of my theater."
Seriously?
If Wikipedia is to be believed, then yes. But I digress. Disney believed that adding sound to a cartoon would greatly increase its appeal. It would not be the first synchronized sound cartoon, as you know from our third animation Antiquities, because David and Maxwell Fleischer's Inkwell Studios had already produced sound cartoons, part of the Song Cartoon series using the Phonofilm sound-on-film process. However, Steamboat Willie would be the first cartoon to perfectly synchronize its sound, as where the song cartoons failed to keep the sound fully synchronized, Steamboat Willie was produced using a click track to keep the musicians on the beat. As little as 1 month before Steamboat Willie was released, Paul Terry released Dinner Time, which also used a soundtrack, but Dinner Time was not a financial success. Production of Steamboat Willie took place between July and September 1928, with an estimated budget of $4,986, or around $71,374 in 2017 money. There was initially some doubt among the animators that a sound cartoon would appear believable enough. So before a soundtrack was produced, Disney arranged for a screening of the film to a test audience with live sound to accompany it. This screening took place on July 29th, with Steamboat Willie only partially finished. The audience sat in a room adjoining Walt's office. Roy placed the movie projector outdoors, and the film was projected through a window so that the sound of the projector would not interfere with the live sound. Iwerks set up a bedsheet behind the movie screen, behind which he placed a microphone connected to speakers where the audience would sit. The live sound was produced from behind the bedsheet, with Wilfred Jackson playing the music on a mouth organ, Iwerks banging on pots and pans for the percussion segment, and Johnny Cannon providing sound effects with various devices, including slide whistles and spittoons for bells. Walt Disney himself provided what little dialogue there was to the film, mostly grunts, laughs, and squawks. After several practices, they were ready for the audience, which consisted of Disney employees and their wives. Excuse me a moment. Much better. The response of the audience was extremely positive, and it gave Walt the confidence to move forward and complete the film. He said later in recalling this first viewing, "The effect on our little audience was nothing less than electric. They responded almost instinctively to this union of sound and motion. I thought they were kidding me, so they put me in the audience and ran the action again. It was terrible, but it was wonderful, and it was something new." Iwerks said, "I've never been so thrilled in my life. Nothing since has ever equaled it." The music in the final soundtrack was performed by the Green Brothers Novelty Band and was conducted by Carl Eduarde. The brothers Joe and Lou Green from the band also assisted on timing the music to the film. The first attempt to synchronize the recording with the film, done on September 15, 1928, was a disaster. Disney had to sell his Moon Roadster in order to finance a second recording. Fortunately, it was a success with the addition of a film bouncing ball to keep the tempo. Say, we had to do a second recording of everything too, didn't we?
Yes, and it's really annoying. So we continue.
Yes. Steamboat Willie premiered at Universal's Colony Theater, now called the Broadway Theater, in New York City on November 18, 1928. It played ahead of the independent feature film Gang War, and while Gang War is all but forgotten today, Steamboat Willie was an immediate and lasting hit. Distributed by Celebrity Productions, Steamboat Willie's initial run lasted for 2 weeks. Disney was paid $500 for each week, which would roughly translate to $7,157 in 2017 money. The success of Steamboat Willie not only led to international fame for Walt Disney, but for Mickey as well. On November 21st, Variety magazine published a review which read in part, "Not the first animated cartoon to be synchronized with sound effects, but the first to attract favorable attention. Steamboat Willie represents a high order of cartoon ingenuity, cleverly combined with sound effects. The reunion brought laughs galore. Giggles came so fast at the Colony Theater that they were stumbling over each other." As for my feelings on the matter, I tend to agree with Walt's later statement. It all started with a mouse. Steamboat Willie, while certainly not Disney's first short or even his first success, was the first success of his that had a lasting impact. Furthermore, it was also the first major success that was truly his to remain. It was done for his studio rather than for another studio, and unlike what was the case with Oswald, Mickey Mouse would never be taken away from Disney. With regards to the short itself, I feel that Steamboat Willie holds up very well to this day. The animation is quite fluid, the visuals are eye-catching, and the use of music and sound effects is quite enjoyable. It's easy to see how it became the success that it did. Audiences at the time of Steamboat Willie's release were reportedly impressed by the use of sound for comedic purposes. Sound films, or talkies, were still considered innovative, and even though most United States movie theaters had installed sound film equipment by 1928, most cartoon studios were still producing silent products and so were unable to effectively act as competition to Disney. As a result, Mickey would soon become the most prominent animated character of the time. Walt Disney soon worked on adding sound to both Plain Crazy and The Gallopin' Gaucho, which had originally been silent releases, and their new release added to Mickey's success and popularity. A fourth Mickey short, The Barn Dance, was also put into production. However, Mickey does not actually speak until The Carnival Kid in 1929, when his first spoken words were. After Steamboat Willie was released, Mickey became a close competitor to Felix the Cat, and his popularity would grow as he was continuously featured in sound cartoons. As you know from our previous video, by 1929, Felix would lose popularity among theater audiences, and despite Pat Sullivan beginning to produce Felix cartoons in sound, audiences did not respond well to Felix's transition, and by 1930, Felix had faded from the screen, and it was clear that Mickey Mouse was poised to become the future face of animation. Or was he? I'm the Blue Baron, defender of traditionalism. God bless you all, and remember, Fides Traditio Monarchia.
Said your life.
I know.
It's like, wait, I can't draw the sword. Weak arms, too skinny.
As you may remember from last time, the Alice comedies were arguably what officially began Walt Disney's career in animation. The series ran from March 1924.
What? I hit the burp.
The series ran from March 1924 to July 1927, by which time...
Is this becoming a regular thing for you? Like, come on! How you could do it better?
It's harder than it looks when you're reading all the lines. You have it easy. You have one sentence at a time or so.
One is the cow who walks onto the tracks and refuses to move until... Really? I keep tracking when you're moving the mouse. Ooh, mouse? Mouse. So I wanted to do a mouse thing.
I know. We will do that at some point. Alright, start your line again.
My ears. I bent it the wrong way, okay. One is a cow who walks onto the tracks and refuses to move until Oswald drives the trunk. Number 1 is a cow who walks onto the tracks and refuses to move until Oswald drives the trolley.
Hang on, try.
Why do I keep on saying trolley?
I don't know. Trolley, indeed.
Drive
Trolley,
the
Drive the trolley. That's like very quirky. Drive the trolley, everybody.
we should do like an episode where we just talking like babies. That would be really funny.
I think that's a bit too lowbrow.
What? We're still recording, aren't we?
Yes. We could do the best of bloopers thing or something like that. That'd be
you know I'm gonna win, right?
Yes. Oddwalls. Oddwalls. I said oddwalls.
Dum dum dum. What? I can do a better dum 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 than you. I got a different voice.
I'm the Blue Baron, defender of traditionalism. God bless you all, and remember... Let me try that once more.
I'm pretty sure you something.